What's up, friends? Welcome back to the Christian Authors with Marilyn Jean Designs podcast, the show where faith meets bold storytelling and where women rewriting chapters with God as their editor-in-chief. I'm your host, Gina Stockdall, and your Kingdom Marketing CEO who loves stories that heal and empower others. So today's episode is going to hit you pretty deep. We're talking about heartbreak, healing, high-ticket faith, and the hard path that leads to real transformation. Our guest today is a powerhouse. She's an author, therapist, coach, and fellow podcaster, and her name is Debbie Caudle. For over 30 years, Debbie has been walking alongside women and couples through some of life's messiest moments. And now she's turned her own pain into purpose with her book, The Path Less Traveled. Debbie, welcome to our show.
Thanks, Gina. It's great to be here.
So first off, you've been in the therapy world for over 3 decades, which is already incredible because my best friend's also a therapist. But what I love the most is how real and bold you are about your own story. When I was reading your intake, it looks like your book, The Path Less Traveled, that title already feels like a deep breath for me. So I guess my first question for you would be, can you take us back to your crossroads moment that inspired this book?
Yeah, I absolutely I can. I was married to my first husband for almost 24 years. And somewhere about 5 years before it ended was really that crossroads moment for me. I started experiencing panic attacks. I was so deeply unhappy, but I had really come to believe for lots of reasons that it was all about me. So I was in and out of therapy for myself for like 8 years. But that year just really hit me hard. And I actually had thought about quitting therapy. I actually told people this is my last year. I'm not going to do this anymore.
Oh, no.
I was just feeling burnt out and unhappy. But I really wasn't thinking about my marriage as the problem. I really was very inward directed. But the panic attacks were kind of a turning point for me because, I had worked with lots of people who had panic attacks, but I had never experienced them myself. And it was this crazy, scary thing to be going through. And when I would talk to my therapist about it, she would be like, Debbie, it's like there's this dark cloud is hanging over you, but your life is really, from her perspective, really not that bad. And I realized that in that moment that I was making so many fear-based decisions. There were things going on in my marriage and professionally that were just sort of paralyzing me inside. And I felt like I had to handle it all and figure it all out myself. And it seemed like I wasn't getting any help. And I just realized that I can't keep living like this. The panic attacks really sort of woke me up to something has to change. And of course, I knew all the right tools. I'd been teaching them for years as a therapist. I just decided, you know what, Debbie, it's time to start walking the walk.
Right.
So, yeah. So go ahead.
Okay. I was like, are you also like me where you can give really good advice, but you never take your own?
I think that's the same for a lot of service providers, doctors or therapists, or teachers. Sometimes we make the worst clients or patients. And I just, I tell everybody all the time, journal. And I'm a journaler, but sometimes I journal sporadically and you just sort of get away from doing things. And also when you're, the problem really was in my marriage, but because I worked with so many people whose marriages seemed so much worse, that was my perspective. Oh, my marriage isn't that bad compared to so-and-so that I'm working with. But what I started doing was, we lived in Wyoming at the time.
Yeah.
And we had a ranch, and I would take my journal, I would climb up into the hills behind the ranch, and I would just write. And that really started waking me up to what are you doing, Debbie? And why has this happened? And what are you going to do about it?
Right. So see, this is one thing that I love about I was reviewing your book before we hopped on here, and I noticed that your book is not just about surviving a divorce, but it's more about choosing intention and about
Yeah.
actually healing the inside instead of like slapping a Bible verse on it and pretending like you're fine, which we're all pretty familiar with, I feel. Um,
Yeah.
when you were writing this, was it more of a therapy for you, or were you thinking specifically of the woman that you want to read it?
Well, the book came later. You know,
Okay.
when my marriage was really, really on the rocks, I started I had started it a while before, but then I really started to dive into it deeper. I started writing a course for women. And at
Okay.
the time I had this really cool, clever name called A Christian's Woman's Guide to Intentional Living, which
Listen.
I later renamed also The Path Less Traveled. That came first. And
Okay.
the book came later. I was actually separated from my husband when the book came about. And
Mm,
like I could really get into this story, but I won't. I'll spare you. But my husband and I at the time were actually in the Middle East. We were serving on a church sponsored project over there for a year. We were teaching at schools. We were at different schools. And that's where we actually separated. Still
mm,
living under the same roof, but now in separate bedrooms. And that was also the year that I was writing that program. And I had before we left for the Middle East, I had invited a handful of women who'd worked with me in the past. I'd said, hey, pilot program, hardly going to charge anything. Are you interested? A bunch of them said yes. And I said, okay, great. The only thing is I'm writing this chapter by chapter. So when each chapter or module's done, I'll send it to you. That's how it's going to work. So
sure,
that was while I was in the Middle East. When I got home from the Middle East, not knowing what the heck was going to happen with my marriage,
sure.
I knew that it had always been on my bucket list to write a book. I'd actually started writing a book like 20 years prior, but it was fictional. And then I never finished it. And I realized by this time that it was because the book I was meant to write was meant to help people
Yeah,
and make a difference and change people's lives. And I couldn't just do that with a fictional story, or so I thought at the time.
right.
So I actually reached out to a company to, because I'm a good writer, but I knew, look, you're starting over, Debbie. You've been in the Middle East. Your business has dwindled basically down to nothing. You don't know if your marriage is going to make it. So, time is of the essence. So I hired a company to help me write the book, and they helped me come up with the outline for the chapters. And then they assigned me a point person, and then that person interviewed me with each chapter. And then
Yeah.
they said, give us 6 months, we'll come back to you with the finished product, for you to edit. So
Okay.
when they did that and I looked at it, I thought, oh gosh, this is not my book. Like these are, I can't publish this. They had done an okay job, but it wasn't really what I wanted to say or the way I wanted to say it. So I started over again. And they had given me a deadline to give them back the edited version, but I was starting from scratch. So it literally took me another 6 months of rewriting this book. And they published it for me. It's published under their name, but
Sure.
every word was written by me. But it really was telling my story. And yeah, it was absolutely therapeutic. But I didn't write it because I needed the therapy. I
Sure.
wrote it because I've always been the kind of person who who takes everything I go through,
Hmm.
and when I feel emotionally ready, even though there's some rawness and vulnerability in it still, I want to take everything I've gone through and use it to help somebody else. That's just been like my whole journey, my whole life. So the book really was just an extension of that.
I absolutely love that. And what I'm starting to kind of hear is like you don't really hold back, and there's a lot of wisdom
Thank you.
behind what you're putting into it. So which chapter do you think was the hardest for you to write?
Honestly, I think I don't remember which number it is, but I think the
Sure.
chapter about my dad, I talk about, because I tell a little bit of my childhood story through this book
Mhm.
and what shaped me as a woman.
Mm,
And so much of the time we as women are shaped by our fathers, and it affects our relationship with God. And I wanted to share this story. And my youngest sister, I had one perspective of my dad prior to my sister and I having this really sort of important conversation. And she helped me to realize, Debbie, we learned so much from dad. My dad is my parents were both teachers. My dad is very outdoorsy.
Mhm.
And every school break, every summer vacation, he's a hunter and a fisherman, and he's in his 80s now. He doesn't do much of this anymore. But growing up, like and I'm from Canada, so we call it the bush. We were always on the bush. We were always hiking or backpacking or canoeing or hunting or doing something. And I learned a lot of survival skills and wilderness skills from my dad. I sort of prided myself on not being one of these, like, wimpy, my words at the time anyway, wimpy girly girls who was afraid of breaking a nail or, because that wasn't how he raised us to be. He raised us to be very independent, and strong and tough. But he also was not a talker. And there were times when he and I would go on trips together, 2-3 days, to get up to the hunting camp that he wanted to go to. And there'd be like virtually no conversation in the car. And that impacted my relationship with God. Like I struggled up until my separation. I struggled to know how to talk to God. And even to this day, there are times when I battle this where I'm like, God knows what I'm really thinking. Do I really need to talk to God? He knows what's in my heart, because it's such a thing from my childhood of like everything internal, like no conversation. And so that chapter, I knew my parents might be reading this book. I knew that in being this vulnerable and this open and saying, my dad taught me so many amazing things, but I didn't have that connection from him, and it affected my ability for many years to relate to God. Like that chapter was hard to write.
I can imagine. I also have I don't know what word I want to use, like rocky, I suppose, relationship with my dad. And so I understand that. Like he was my best friend growing up, and now that's an adult, like we're not. And it is hard. And I'm ironically writing my chapter in my book about the exact same thing right now. So there's a God thing for you.
Yeah.
So with you having, that struggle, do you find that kind of empowered you or like led you to start creating your mission of helping other Christian women and couples?
I think that really was the beginning of that.
Mm-hmm.
Up until that time, I had worked in Wyoming. We had a very different kind of counseling practice where we worked with a lot of family and kids. But and as much as I love children, I didn't get to have any. I lost 2 pregnancies early in my first marriage, but God blessed me with the opportunity to be involved and help many, many children in that part of my professional life.
Yeah.
But I came away from that knowing, I really, really want to work with adults, because children don't typically like counseling. And I really want to work with people who want to be in my office.
Yeah.
So, and I'd always enjoyed marriage counseling, but to be honest, if I'm really going to tell the truth, I'm a romantic. I love happy endings. And I grew up reading romances thanks to my mom. She was a big Harlequin reader, so I was always stealing her Harlequins. And, there's something for me about boy meets girl. They fall in love, they have conflict, they figure it out, and all is well in the end. And to be a part of that, to be a part of a couple's journey in helping them rediscover the love that they used to have, the connection they used to have, that's a privilege that I never, ever want to take for granted.
I love that. I love that. We need to turn that into like a t-shirt, I think. I'm just saying, because like, not many people can look at their professions and just say like, what I do is a privilege.
It is.
And so I'm curious, while you're doing this, how do you help women move from kind of like the I'm stuck, I'm, in pain, and we've all been there, but how do you
Sure.
move from that to I am officially walking in my purpose?
Yeah. Well, that's really the whole point of the book is,
Yeah.
we have these crossroads moments, right? And one path is that familiar path. I don't like to call it the comfort zone because often we're not very comfortable, but it
Mhm.
is familiar. So, it's that straight shot ahead and you can see down that path because just look behind you. That's where you've come from, right? So
Yeah.
there's pain, there's suffering, there's big, deep ruts in that path, other people's choices that have impacted you, your choices that have impacted you, but at least it's familiar. And then
Mhm.
there's this other path that seems to be clear of all that emotional debris. The only problem is there's a bend in the road and you can't see around it. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, too many women stay on the familiar path, making excuses, making justifications, blaming, because we get to be a certain age. I think it happens like around typically like mid 30s. We get to that
Yeah.
place where
Don't tell
we
me that.
just, yeah, where we just, life didn't turn out the way we wanted to, when we were dreaming about it as a young girl and a young woman.
Mm,
And it's easy to blame our childhood. It's easy to blame our parents, our husband, just life circumstances.
yeah.
But that path less traveled is about saying enough is enough. Nobody is going to rescue from your unhappiness. It's up to you. You either take charge of your life right now, this moment, and you take responsibility for where you're at, or you don't. So, which one
Yeah.
is it going to be?
See, I think that's powerful. And where were you in my early 20s? So I'm 33. And so I went, that's why you're like mid 30s, like, oh no. Um, but I went through that in my early 20s.
Wow.
You know,
Early.
yes, I was, and this is what my book is like, I was in an abusive relationship from the age of 18 to 22, and I moved
Mhm.
back in with my mom. And, I lived with my mom until I ended up meeting my husband a few years later, and we've been together ever since. But um, it was one of those things where, I was supposed to go to college. I was supposed to have this career. I was supposed to do these things. And here I was at 22 with none of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is actually happening? And so now at 33, it looks different still, but it's taken me 11 years to pick myself up and fix it, essentially.
Yeah. And
You
that's
know?
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, life is a journey, right? It's not a
Mhm.
destination, it's a journey. So I always tell people to stop beating yourself up, stop measuring your success in terms of how long it takes you to figure things out. Because I don't know that we ever totally get it all figured out.
Oh, I agree. Whenever people talk about success, oh Lord have mercy, I think that's probably something that gets under my skin a little because
Mm,
success is measured differently by every
yes.
single person, right? Um, so speaking of like those things though, and so because that's a really important thing I had to learn. And one thing I also had to learn was how you mentioned kind of like that curve in the road,
Yeah.
that had I gone down the road that I originally wanted, my life would be completely different than what it is now, and not in a good way. The Lord knows, right?
Yeah.
Lord knows what he's doing. And so I know you mentioned one course previously, but you have two courses out there, right?
Yeah. So after the first course and after the book, then I decided, okay, I'm divorced and now I'm remarried. So how can I use this? How
Yeah.
can I take what I learned through the separation and the absolute agony, the emotional roller coaster of that and losing friends? To this day, people who won't talk to me and think they know what happened, right?
Oh,
I mean,
oh,
there's just so much devastation that divorce causes. There's a reason why God says he hates divorce. And
mm,
that's one of the reasons. To take that and then to very intentionally determine if I was going to be blessed with the opportunity to fall in love again and find
mhm,
the right man, I need to know exactly what kind of man I need. And then to go through that process and build that relationship again and be married to the most amazing man. Okay, how can I pay this forward yet
yeah.
again? So I created Beauty from Ashes, which is another program for women. Both of these programs are specific to women. And Beauty from Ashes comes from the scripture in Isaiah. It's like, I don't know, Isaiah 57. I don't remember, where, the prophet says, I'll a bunch of things, right? But I'll turn beauty and I'll create beauty from ashes. And I thought that's a beautiful name for what happens out of divorce when you remarry and find love again. But I wanted to help women understand that it's not just the process of time that brings about healing, because if you don't recognize the patterns that were in your first marriage, and maybe not just your first marriage, maybe there are other marriages, or maybe it comes from your childhood, because sometimes we can marry our mom or our dad, right? The parent that we have sort of the unresolved issues with, that it really is a thing. So if we don't recognize those patterns and the choices that we've made and go through, understand that and go through that healing process and fix our distorted thinking. There's so many different things that the course walks women through. And really it takes women on a journey of looking upwards in their relationship with God, because divorce can affect that too. Like, God, I thought this was the person you brought for me. What happened? Why didn't you fix this? I'm hurt. I'm angry with you. Some other people, it's the opposite. Like for me, it was the opposite. Like that was when I really started to pull close to God and learn how to just open up and talk to him. But I've worked with lots of women who are angry and hurting. So looking upward at your relationship with God, looking inward at the things that are going on inside of you, the voice in your head and the distorted thinking, all of that, looking outward at the relationships with your ex, if you have one, your kids, the friends that are helpful, the friends that are not, literally just how to build a community of support and figure out who is contributing to your life versus contaminating your life, and then finally looking onwards. So it's really sort of a 4-pronged approach.
I love that. Who's contributing versus who's contaminating. Another one. That's a good quote. I
actually think I got that from Dr. Phil.
Sometimes they know what they're talking about, every once in a while. Not often, but still. So let's zoom out just a little bit on, you host your own podcast too. And so it's called High Ticket Woman, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Which already sounds like an entire whole vibe, and I'm here for it. What made you launch that show, and how does that connect to your message?
Well, I was working with a business coach a couple years ago, and I wasn't even someone who listened to podcasts, but the coach had his own podcast. Yeah. And he was teaching, those of us, it was a group coaching kind of system. And he was teaching us to understand that podcasting isn't really about generating new clients. It's about nurturing the ones that you have, or the ones who are listening to you and they haven't yet decided if they want to work with you. And I thought, that's a great way. It's another platform for me to really serve and really help. But I called it the High Ticket Woman, sort of on a play on, all these coaches in my head, having a high ticket program, I thought, well, the high ticket woman is the one who values herself. And if there's one driving message that I want to get across to women, it's stop selling yourself so cheaply. Yes. And originally the idea was behind, if you listen to season 1, it's really, I'm speaking to women in general, women who aren't married yet, women who are dating, women who are trying to find a man. Season 2 now is really very much more focused on marriage. Okay. But the concept is the same. We sell ourselves short all the time in the way that we allow men and other people to treat us. And we have to raise our expectations for ourselves. We have to have boundaries. We have to align our values with those boundaries. And if we want more from our relationships, then we have to expect more from ourselves. A high ticket woman isn't going around begging and pleading for attention, to be noticed, to be loved, to be accepted.
I'm here for this, right? Because like we're in a culture where and maybe I shouldn't say this as a blanket statement, but at least for myself, because I was raised in the churches where women are either told to like be silent or to
Yeah.
submit through the abuse or told to, forget, um, don't do like self-care. You only have to focus on your family, which,
Yeah.
okay, but
Which
you
is really, which
no,
is not biblical. It's not biblical.
no.
I believe in the biblical concept of submission, but society has totally misrepresented what that actually means.
Yes.
So submission is first of all, it's a choice. And by the way, we all do it. Every time you pull up to a stoplight and you actually honor it, guess what? You're submitting.
Mhm,
We've twisted this idea around to mean that, men are under women, they're under men's authority. And,
mhm.
in marriage, God has, we're maybe getting off track here of what you want, but yeah,
Oh,
in marriage, there are roles and responsibilities, but you're a partnership and you are equal in God's eyes. So I
mhm,
talk about that in the podcast too, because I want to educate women about, again, raising their own standard for themselves. And this isn't like, I've got, there are good things about the feminist movement and there are
oh,
bad things about what the feminist movement has become and the whole female empowerment thing. And I feel really badly for men because I see the emasculation that's going
mhm.
on with men as a result of this.
Right.
So the podcast is not about men bashing at all. I love
Oh,
men.
yeah.
God created men and he created men to be different than women. But this is about women. Yeah, and I even talk about this in the podcast because I think we've become very polarized, the two genders, and there are a lot of reasons for that. We can't cover it today, but
Mhm.
this is something I really want women to take responsibility for: is to stop blaming men for your unhappiness. Stop blaming men
Ooh.
for what you're giving away willingly, including your own body, and in the hope of getting something back. But oops, no, you didn't.
Ooh. Again, where were you a decade ago? Because yeah, it's easy to blame everybody else,
It is.
you know, and
Yeah.
you chose to take the path less traveled. And what would you say to like a woman listening right now who's at her own crossroads?
I would say, well, I talk in the book about like there's a bridge between the two paths because there's this transitionary period, right? When you decide to get really intentional about your life, you need to understand that it may not be easy. You may
Mm,
get some resistance. There are going to be people in your life who've gotten used to you being the way that you've been, which
yes.
may be a people pleaser, someone who, lets people walk all over you.
Mm,
Whatever that looked like, there are people who expect that behavior of you. And when you start to step up and take responsibility for yourself and start saying no to certain things in your life and even certain
mm,
people in your life, not everybody's just going to be over on the side, going rah, 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 good for you. They might be angry. They might be hurt. They might be confused. Lots of different emotions. They might not understand at all what's going on. So don't stop. Don't that be the
mhm,
reason why you stop. But you do need to be communicating. You need to be talking to God through this process. You need to be very clear with yourself about what you're trying to accomplish. And you need to educate your loved ones on why you're doing this.
mhm,
You start to really assert yourself and really come up with healthy boundaries. You're not trying to leave them behind. You're teaching them how you now want to be treated. I
yes.
say this all the time. We teach people how to treat us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I am so excited about this topic because I was never taught boundaries growing up.
Yeah.
Ever. And at 33 years old, and now I'm in therapy, and now I'm learning what a boundary even is, and that it's, as a recovering people pleaser myself, I'm learning that setting those boundaries is okay. And actually, it's mandatory.
It's absolutely essential
Yeah.
to your own well-being and the health of your relationships.
And it's made me realize over the years that sometimes God closes doors for a reason. It's hurtful, right? When that happens, because you don't want it to. But sometimes it happens for a reason, and that's okay. It doesn't make them a bad person, just means that they no longer bring value right now, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. I love what you just said, because sometimes God protects us from ourselves, from
mm,
our own poor decisions, right? God has boundaries too.
mhm,
And sometimes he intervenes and other times he doesn't. And that's okay too, because growth only comes through suffering. It'd be nice if we could all just sit on the couch and watch TV all day and eat whatever we wanted and do whatever we wanted and, grow and learn and become our very best selves. But like, it just doesn't work that way.
no, it does not. You know,
So,
and it's okay to be learning that later in life too, because it's like better late than never.
well, and life isn't just linear, it's cyclical too. So as you're going down that linear chronological path, getting older, different things in life, you'll revisit them. But
Mhm.
ideally, you're wiser, you're more mature, you have more life experience. But don't be surprised if the thing that you experienced 5, 10, 15 years ago is revisited. Because
Ooh,
sometimes we're sort of tested on the same things at different stages in our life to see if we're going to handle them better.
interesting. No, I mean, that makes sense. I don't know if I'm prepared for that though.
You will be.
Ah, you know, I mean, yes. And so it's one thing too, is like kind of breaking those generational curses because like I do have two kids. I want them
Yeah.
to be, when they're adults, confident enough in themselves to be like, this is about a hard boundary and non-negotiable for me. I will not tolerate that. You
Yeah.
know, I think that my adulthood could have been much more enjoyable if I had the confidence to do that,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
and when as a mom, it now becomes even more important for you to understand how to have healthy boundaries, because otherwise your kids walk all over you, right?
Or,
And that's not okay. I mean, what are you modeling to your kids if you don't know how to not only say no, but enforce that no to
mhm,
where they respect you? And, okay, there may be a lot of eye rolling and, huffs and puffs and muttering under their breath, but you know, good parenting is all about delayed gratification. So just wait till they're in their 20s and then they'll thank you.
I think one of my favorite things that I was told when I first had my son, because my oldest one is 7, was always remember whenever they get mad at you in like the teen years, right? To look at
Yeah.
your child and be like, I love you enough to let you be mad at me right
My
now.
sister had this fantastic thing that she would do with her boys, very, very similar. That when they would want to argue or negotiate with her, she'd always say, I love you too much to argue with you about this.
Oh, love it.
And she'd say it over and over. Like that was her stock answer. I love you too much to argue about this. And it annoyed them like crazy, but it always shut down the argument because it
Mhm,
wasn't going to go anywhere.
mhm. Oh, I might have to start using that because my kids are definitely in the stage of like pushing boundaries to
Yeah,
see what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, and it's totally
uh,
normal. And
it is. Yeah.
with us homeschooling, I deal with this literally all day,
Every day, multiple times a day.
every day. And it really has gotten to the point where I do feel like I'm on a broken record, but that's what they need,
Yeah.
and like, no, I'm sorry, that's not what we're doing today. The end.
The
Um,
end.
I've already answered. I've already answered that question. I'm not answering it again.
I
Um,
love that. I
you know,
love that.
like, but it's taken therapy for me to be able to even do that sometimes.
Well,
It's like, right.
that's one of the great things about therapy, right? Is that you've got that outside professional experience or expert, I guess is what I want to say, giving you those tools and validating the importance of saying no. You're not going to screw your kids up by saying no.
No, I know. Actually, it's one of those things too. The more I like read the Bible, and the more that we dive into homeschooling, that no is becoming like my favorite word a little bit because I'm like, no, we're not going to, we're not
You
going to
know,
go.
another really cool thing to do is when your kids come to you and say, Mom, can we do this? Can we do that? You can say, may. I love this. My answer is maybe, but if you keep asking me, it becomes no.
No. Yep.
Because it shuts them up right away.
Oh, my 4-year-old specifically. My 4-year-old is a lot like his mother and is very impatient. And, patience is a virtue that I have yet to grow. I'm working on it.
Me
But
too. Me
he,
too.
he looks exactly like me, acts just like me, whole 9 yards. And he will do that. He'll be like, okay, Mom, can we go outside to do chalk? And I'll be like, as soon as, like, I do the when then a lot. When I am done, doing laundry, then we will go outside. And then 2 seconds later, he'll come in. So are we going to go do chalk now? No, sir, we're not, because my laundry's not done yet, right? And then 2 seconds later, he'll come and ask me again. And that's when I got the whole, I already answered that question, I'm not answering it again. And there are times where I will tell him, if you ask me that question again, we will absolutely not go outside. And he will not
does
in there.
Does he stop?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, outside, dang it.
It works every time, I tell you.
I know. He's my little Pooh Bear baby, and I love it. But, I mean, the impatience on that child, I swear. You know how they say, like, whenever you pray for patience, instead of God just giving it to you, they give you a task?
Again, it'd be nice if God just open up the top of our heads and poured in a whole bunch of patience, but it doesn't work that way.
No. No. I wish it did, but he's not a genie, he's a teacher. So here we are.
Exactly.
One thing that I do love about like your story though is that it's the proof that the Holy Spirit can turn like ashes into strategy and like pain into purpose. For those of us who've been like through really rocky, breakups and things like that, you didn't just survive, but you built like a whole blueprint for others to be able to heal too. And I'm here for that, honestly.
Yeah, thank you. I really don't know any other way. I think it's the teacher in me. I come from a long line of teachers, and I think I'm always looking for the lesson in something that's just so deeply ingrained in me. So yeah, and yeah.
No, my mom is a teacher. My grandma is a teacher. My grandpa was a teacher. So I feel you.
So you get it. Yeah, you get it.
When we decided to homeschool, a lot of people looked at me. I'm like, I promise it's in my blood. I got it. But yeah, I mean,
it is healing though too. I mean, for me to have created, each course I walked through, the book, I'm now working on my second book, which by the way is a fictional story that is going to be useful. I won't give it away, but I'm kind of excited about it. I've combined the two. With everything that I do, I'm always drawing on my own personal experiences and it's healing for me. And when you look, healing is not like this one and done kind of thing, right? Like you're going to be triggered when you go through something really traumatic. You're going to think I'm fine, and nothing tests that like a new relationship. So if you really truly think you're healed, just go jump into a new relationship. And then if they also have had multiple breakups or divorce or whatever, now it's a double whammy. But so it takes a lot of intentionality. And thankfully, I'm married to an incredibly mature man. And we agreed very early on, look, we are really truly not going to sweat the small stuff because every day is precious. And that is our daily motto. But whether or not you're truly healed when you go into another relationship. That's the true test. For me, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm like, I have to completely agree. My husband and I got together shortly, I shouldn't say shortly, but like it was like a year after his divorce. And when they were married for less than 2 years, didn't have kids. And then my previous relationship, we were engaged, but we never married, but we were together for 4 years. When we got together and then we had our kids, we definitely had to learn we had to heal together, like separately, but also together, because we thought we were fine. No, we weren't.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are just like, but you guys do so well. I'm like, yes, now, 10 years later, sure. But I think one thing that's like, we had to learn to communicate. We had to learn that our triggers were brought on by our exes and not each other, right? One thing that we also really had to learn was we sat down and we kind of realized, like, due to our past, we kind of learned what not to do. And
Mhm.
I did the kind of opposite of that, and then we've been smooth sailing since. But I mean, it was a rough few years at first,
Yeah.
you
Jeff
know.
and I, my husband Jeff and I, I mean, I don't think a week, we've been married, we're coming up on 5 years, and I don't think a week goes by that we aren't referencing something that we've learned about the past that affects us now,
Hmm.
and how much better it is, and how intentional we are, or need to be, or want to be in a certain area. Like, it's always a constant state of conversation for us, because
Yes.
I think both of us are very aware of how complacent you can get in a relationship, and you start to take each other for granted, and then that's when that emotional drift begins to occur.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think it's hysterical that your husband's name is Jeff, because so is mine.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's just something about the Jeffs in the world.
I know.
At least our two Jeffs.
Yeah, that's fair. No, but I agree. Like, there are times where, I get really overwhelmed really easily. And instead of, him getting annoyed with me about it, now he's like, okay, how can I help you?
Yeah,
'Cause
that's great.
he recognizes that I'm not upset, I'm overwhelmed. My anger is a secondary reaction. Um, and that helps keep me grounded. So now I'm not saying that we're perfect, because we're not, we're human, but
Yeah, but it means he gets you.
you're right. It's so
Right?
much.
He's not just reacting to the anger. He's going underneath the anger and going, "Hey, what's really going on, and how can I support you in this?"
Yes. And I'm able to do the same now. When we first got together, forget that, you
Yeah.
know, but that's the thing, like you said, if you think you're okay, start dating, because whew, that was
Yeah.
eye-opening.
Yeah.
Um, so before we wrap up, do you mind telling the listeners where they can grab your book, possibly sign up for your courses, or follow you online?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the easiest way to get a hold of me is my website,
Okay.
debbiecaudle.com. The book is available on Amazon. If you just type in The Path Less Traveled and then my name, because there unfortunately are a bunch of books with similar names, or even the same name, The Path Less Traveled. It's a popular name. So you're going to want to attach my name to that too. But you can also access the book. The link to the book is also on the website. And then I don't have the courses listed on the website because um, I don't want people to like sort of get lost in the weeds.
Sure.
So all you got to do, my phone number and my email, there's a way to just contact me and say, "Hey, I heard this podcast episode. I'm really interested in your course. How do I access it?" And that's a good place to start. The other thing that I want people to know is I now also have a 6-month intensive marriage recovery program called Marriage in Bloom.
Ooh.
And yeah, so like I'm super, super, super excited about that, because, and whether you're the only one in the marriage working on it, I've got like a solo track, or like we're doing this together as a couple. Either way,
Mhm.
six months of intensive work, and each month we dive into very specific areas of the marriage, and all of that is accessible through reaching out to me through my website.
I love it. I will put links and things in the episode description also. So for
Sure,
those
yeah,
are
yeah.
interested and easier. Before we wrap up, I want to have just a little bit of fun. It's gonna be kind
Okay.
of like a rapid fire round. This is the first thing that comes to your mind after I ask the question. Go for it.
Uh-oh.
It's just to
Okay.
kind of end on a fun note. Don't worry about it. First
Okay,
question.
cool.
Go to worship song when you need a breakthrough.
Oh, what is the name of that song? They made a movie out of it.
Mm.
I can't think of the name. I can't think of the name, but they made a movie out of it. It was super popular in the 70s. I'm tempted to sing a line like, um, about like, um, w- how will I be when I see you in your glory? Do you remember that song?
Oh, yes.
Will I be silent, or will I
I
be,
was just
do
listening to this.
yeah,
I
I
was just
cannot
listening
think of the
to it.
name of that song, but I love that song.
That one is one of my favorites too.
Yeah, I wish I could.
do-
I wish I remember the name of it.
it will bother me too, but I have COVID brain and I can't think of things ever anymore. I've had COVID 3 times and now I feel like I just don't think of
Oh,
them.
3 times. You know, I
Yeah.
don't think I've even had it once. I mean,
Um,
if I have, I've been asymptomatic.
I'm jealous because I'm one of those that I'm like down and out for an entire week.
Sorry.
Yeah. And I since the very first time I ever had it was in 2022, and I have never been able to smell anything since. So yeehaw.
Oh
Um,
no,
I
I'm
know.
sorry.
But I do know what song you're talking about. And ironically, I actually I prefer like rock music because I'm a 90s child. And
Hmm.
I found a rock version of that I absolutely love.
Really
Yes.
interesting.
And so
Wow,
just so all y'all know, there's all sorts of fun different versions of things.
there
Uh,
is. Yes.
I found it because I did only Christian music for Lent and went on Spotify and just started finding random things. And now that's all I'm stuck on. Um, my next one would be, was your most healing scripture during your divorce?
Oh, there are so many of them.
Mm.
You know, I love what is it, Jeremiah 29:11. You know, I have plans for you. I have a hope for you. That one really speaks to me. Like I always felt like every time I read that scripture, I felt like um it's going to get better, Debbie.
Mhm.
God knows exactly what you're going through. He's with you. He's walking right beside you. You are not alone, and it's going to get better. And it did.
I love Jeremiah 29:11. And ironically, this is such a God conversation, you and I today.
Yeah.
That was the verse that I used in my post on my business site today. Um,
Oh, wow.
yep.
Cool.
Okay, so quickly, let's see. Do you prefer tea or coffee when you do therapy sessions or anything at all?
Oh, I love both, but I can't answer this question quickly. I got diagnosed with acid reflux 4 years
Oh,
ago.
no.
And if anybody who knows me prior to that, they know my voice has changed a lot because the only symptom I had was my voice. It was the
Oh.
acid was burning my vocal cords. And but the doctor told me I had to give up caffeine. So I now drink this really wannabe pale version of coffee that's made out of chicory. And
Oh,
I've gotten used to it. I drink it every morning, but
yeah.
every like once a week I allow myself to have a glass of a cup of coffee, and it's like, oh, so delicious. But
Mm,
I will drink tea. You know, a lot of times I'll drink herbal tea, mint tea, or
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I guess coffee. If I'm gonna choose between tea and coffee, coffee.
I'm a coffee person too, so I feel you.
Yeah.
Um, what is your favorite part of being a podcast host?
This right here,
Yeah.
meeting like fun people who love their lives and are excited about what they're doing. And I've met so many cool people. I'm in my second year of doing this, and I've learned a lot. But the best part about it has just been the people that I've met and the things that I've learned.
I agree. It's a lot of fun.
It is
Last question. Let's see. What word would you want women to declare over their lives this month?
over there.
Lives. Like if they are super struggling, is there like a word or even a Bible verse that you think that they should declare that, this is going to be my changing moment? What would you say would be like their declaration?
Hmm. Wow. I don't know if I have one word.
And it's hard to
Um, but there on the back of my hang on, I gotta actually turn my light on to read this. I put this scripture on the back of my business cards back in the day when, it still was valuable to have a business card.
Wow.
And it's Proverbs 19:21, and it says, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. I think that's what I want women to know is like, look, God's in charge, and he wants more from you than you are allowing for yourself.
Mm,
So when you embrace that, when you accept that God actually wants you to live an abundant life, not just in the next life, but right now, that he loves you that much, that he cares about you that much, that you have that much value in his eyes, well, it begins to change everything about the way you look at yourself and the life that you have.
Oh, I love that so much. Y'all, The Path Less Traveled is not just a book. It's definitely a holy disruption. If you've been walking through relationship trauma, if you've ever felt like God left you in a valley somewhere, this is your sign that he hasn't. He's calling you into restoration. So go get Debbie's book, listen to her podcast, and start stepping into a better version of your story. Until next time, stay bold, stay healed, and take the path the world avoids, because God's waiting for you on the other side.